This episode of the Coarse Grind Podcast has been brought to you by Central Sports and Graphics Incorporated, family-owned and operated screen printing and embroidery business located in a historic storefront on Old Berwick Road in the heart of Espy. They've been doing screen printing for over 20 years. They have high-quality product at a low price. Be sure to check them out. Central Sports and Graphics Incorporated, 570-784-1212. Now, on to the show.
Hey, this is Chef Justin Sutherland, and you're listening to Sean on the Coarse Grind Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Episode number 161. I cannot count that high. That's why I was an English teacher of the Coarse Grind Podcast. With you as always this evening, host, creator, Sean Rossler. How's everyone doing this evening? You know, when I sit back and I look at the episode roll, there's always this off season, if you will, when a certain favorite show of mine isn't on the air. No, I'm not talking about The Walking Dead, but total sidebar. Here's Negan was the best episode ever. And I'm not even talking about Schitt's Creek, just wrapping the 5th season, so please, no spoilers. Okay, thanks. I am, of course, referring to the veritable culinary monolith that is Top Chef. Waiting for a new season to come around has been painful, to say the least. And while I thought a little more would happen with it than it did, wink, wink, let's just say I'm glad to see the show itself back on in full swing, and in a new location, no less. And what's even better, the rock stars over at NBC Universal have hooked us up with our first guest, and it's safe to say we're starting off very, very strong. Tonight's guest is not only a chef, but also an accomplished artist who works in a variety of media. Introduced to fine dining at a young age, he immediately wanted to get into the kitchen, starting as a dishwasher at a small local restaurant until he landed a job as a line cook at Chez Panisse, where he trained for 2 years under Alice Waters. No big deal, right? He then moved up the culinary ranks, learning various cuisines at multiple restaurants in St. Louis and Portland, before heading to New York City to work under Chef David Chang, another no big deal, right, at Momofuku Sambar. He later moved to Birmingham, Alabama, and served as executive chef for Rodney Scott's Barbecue. With a kick-ass wife and 2 hilarious children, our guest recently took on a new role as culinary director for Post Office Pies and is working on an exhibition of his latest art. And, oh yeah, he's on the new season of Top Chef. You show up with an interesting story as a guest, we're cool. You show up with skills to boot, even cooler. But if you list being a dad and husband on your resume and refer to your wife in the kick-ass tense, I think we might just have to hang out someday. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone in between, Birmingham, Alabama's own top Cheftestant and culinary director of Post Office Pies, as well as fellow husband father, Chef Roscoe Hall. Chef, what is going on, sir?
What's up? How are you?
I'm doing well, sir. I'm doing well. Yourself?
I'm great.
And great.
Yeah, I took a little brief hiatus into New Orleans this weekend, and I just got back to work.
See, he's brief hiatus to New Orleans. I literally had an hour to play a computer game, and I feel rested. So I got to look up how to rest like you, apparently, sir. Thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to be here. I look forward to helping to share your story. But before we do that, folks new to the program, folks with terrible short-term memories like yours truly, starters, mains, and afters. Starters, we're going to talk about where the guest in question came from, what brought them to us. Mains, we're going to talk about where they're at, what they're doing. And finally, afters, a little bit more irreverent, a little bit more off the cuff, but no one has been seriously, profoundly injured in 160 episodes. So I don't see that happening today. So without further ado, Chef Roscoe Hall, fresh off the relaxation trip to New Orleans, can you tell me about where and what you grew up eating?
Ooh, I grew up in Chicago, Illinois. I'm a late 70s baby.
Nice.
80s cuisine wasn't really cuisine unless you're old enough to go to like Charlie Trotter or live in California with Alice Waters and Jeremiah Tower. So I grew up eating Chicago staples. Like, luckily they were super diverse. I mean, lots of tamales, lots of Greek fried cheese, lots of gyros, lots of fried mushrooms from the local fried chicken spots.
See.
You know, of course we had our Friday night pizza night, either Uno or Home Run for the real Southsiders.
Okay, yep.
Yeah.
All right.
And just stuff at home, like lots of fried liver and rice and onions and salmon croquettes and stuff like that.
See, this is what kills me when I talk to folks like you with just immense, amazing culinary backstories and pedigrees. You know, you say late 70s, baby. I'm like, yeah, I can totally relate to that. And you tell me this, dude, I come from a town where my graduating class, I believe, was under like 200. And so when you say variety of food, like you just explained food we'd see once a year at the fair. So believe me, you got a big jump start on me. Now, I gotta ask, because you brought it up, and this is completely off script here. So Chicago-style pizza is pretty polarizing. I think it's safe to say.
Yes.
True or false, is it a casserole?
Oh, it is not casserole. It's a straight up pie.
You heard it here, kids.
Delicate, cheesy pie.
Okay. That's one vote. One vote to the pie column. I know, but you know what's funny? It's the Chicago natives who say it is. It's delicate. It's lovely. And it's always the crusty, you know, kind of salty New Yorkers who are like, yeah, that's not pizza. That's casserole.
Oh, yeah.
What is that? It's abomination. I happen to like it. Going on record. I'm siding with Chicago, which, you know, I was a Cubs fan since 5th grade, so God knows I'm glutton for punishment.
Yes, you are.
With that in mind, did I mention I'm a Steelers fan this year too? After 11-0,
geez,
and then
I'm
terrible. I'm terrible. Don't give a sports bet to this kid. So you have all this variety and everything, but then you mention the home foods that were cooked. Talk to me about like what was cooked at home and what kind of really speaks to your nostalgia, like your heart when you hear either the name or you smell the smell. What are some dishes that remind you of your childhood?
Well, luckily my family was raised in the South, Alabama. So when they went to college, moved to California, and brought back like an intense influence of Mexican cuisine within our household.
Nice.
So I remember like tons of like puffy tacos, like tortillas fried in oil, and like the smell of cumin on like ground beef. And then you had your southern staples, like, you know, on Easter. You know, we had like Cornish hens with wild rice, biscuits, cornbread, collards. Chitlins were a huge thing growing up. I hated that smell, but now I find myself sous videing them.
Oh, I have never heard of that. And I have to admit, I just did an episode with actually an e-learning. That's my real job. I'm not a real podcast host, kids. But one of my colleagues is Southern born and bred, and we were talking about boiled peanuts, and I'm like, what the hell is a boiled peanut? And she's finally like, we need to get you on air. We did an hour solid on Southern foods that I had never heard of, Roscoe.
There's so much.
It is.
So much.
It's overwhelming almost. And so Chitlins naturally came up. You sous vide them though. I'm interested in that. Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, I sous vide the tendons and the intestines, and I have this new. I was in this like art show called A La Carte that was about food deserts.
Yep.
So I was like, let's dig deep in the food deserts, and I'll go to the local grocery stores and does this food deserts, and I bought chitlins, oxtails. And I was like, what if I made a bolognese with chitlins, and they're so tender. And like, you have to cook them for like 12 hours. So I was like, what if I just cryovac them and sous vide them for 2 hours and get the tenderness out of them? It worked. You can cut them like a glass noodle, and it just works.
That's incredible. That's incredible. And again, not to step out of what is, you know, typical canon for the podcast, but you mentioned a very important term that I think, especially coming out of COVID, coming out of a real kind of desolate period. Food desert. Food desert is a term I think a lot of people will just nod and shake their head and say, oh, I know what that is. And then when you ask them, it'll act like my 13-year-old when I ask him what I asked him to do 5 minutes ago. Oh, what? No, I'm sorry, I wasn't. So can you tell us just exactly what is a food desert? Why are they so significant?
A food desert is so significant because, I mean, we've all grown up in some. In the 80s, you could call the entire United States a food desert, except for California, probably. Yes. It's a place where low income can only eat. They only get products that are just the end of the barrel, you know? It's like, and now, you know, like, they're forced with, like, you know, fast food as an only option. 2 for $5, you know, horrible pizza. No offense to Godfathers and Little Caesars, but you know you're not that good or healthy for any of this.
Exactly.
And then now as chefs, we take all those products from the food desert and glorify them in our restaurants. which doesn't do anything for those people who still live in food deserts. It drives the prices up.
Right.
A food desert just goes without proper guidance. They don't know where their produce, they don't know where any of their product comes from, and it kind of hurts for years. It's something I've stood on a platform for a while now.
Yeah. Well, doesn't that tend to be a trend in foods in general? Like, for a while, I want to say it was soft shell crab, or I don't know if it was blue crab. Like, it was viewed as kind of like trash. And then it's like, oh, well, no, now we're going to elevate this. And it's almost like it goes with the trend. So to your point, you know, it's probably tough to watch because we elevate that food desert. And then, you know, there's got to be a discovery of another more accessible, both financially, I guess, and geographically food source.
Because we live in amongst a food desert. I hope that's a thing. I don't know if it actually is at all.
Yeah. Well, no, it's interesting though. It's just the nature and it almost gets into the sociology of food, but that's a whole other topic for another interview, sir. Let's get back to the chef of the hour, to Chef Roscoe. Now, with all of this awesome culinary backdrop in mind, I gotta wonder, you know, so obviously you ended up doing this as a lifestyle, as a, you know, as a profession. Who influenced you growing up? Who was your greatest culinary influence?
Greatest culinary influence, I would like to say, was my father, because he brought in olive oil to the home and showed me the ways of angel hair pasta.
Okay.
Parmesan.
Awesome. Yeah.
But I think I owe it to my grandfather, who started a barbecue restaurant in the 50s in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, because whenever I'd come visit, I stayed in the restaurant. So it was just like granted it was barbecue. I never touched barbecue until, past like 5 years or so, but it just brought in that feeling of hospitality and like safety inside of a restaurant.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, that's what it is. Even for, a doughy northern boy like myself, there's something that is inherently notice he didn't dispute that. He knows already. He's like, oh yeah, he's northern and he is doughy. Come on, COVID, lose that COVID 20. But barbecue is inherently like a warm hug. Like, I don't know that there's a better way to describe it than that, because, I've had good barbecue. I've had bad barbecue. I've had, Memphis. I've had Texas. I've had, the variety of it all. But it all holds one thing in common, in that it's comforting. It really is. And so you're, 5 years old, you're hanging out with grandpa, and this is your surroundings. How do you not gravitate to it, I guess, eventually?
I don't know. It was just attractive, though I didn't like it as much as I thought I did.
Right, right. It was inevitable. It was fate. It was fate, Chef. So let's talk about that fateful moment. You're surrounded by ridiculous amounts of good food, and you choose to do it for life. What was that moment? Where did you go? How did you find that out?
Well, it was a matter of changing colleges. Like, once I finished high school in Alabama, and then immediately went to I shouldn't say that all the time. I went to a university I did not like, so I quit, and I was like, I need to get a job, and I found Frank Stitt at Bottega in like 98. Okay. And from there I learned that you can make some money, you can always be guaranteed a free meal, and it just makes everything like spot on.
Yeah.
And then I just kind of addicted to it, because once I went to San Diego for undergrad, I just like realized I could just travel everywhere and just learn how to cook and like always eat.
Yeah.
And it just kept going. It was a way to pay the means for education, but the more in depth I fell into it, the more I got attracted to it. And this was pre, Top Chef. This is like the only cooking show we had was like Justin Wilson and Emerald and like.
My God, thank you. Okay, I've gone on record lots of times here and saying I was the weird kid. I was the one who got up on a Saturday morning and watched Justin Wilson, who watched Yen Can Cook, who watched great chefs of the fill in the blank with the region. Somebody dropping Justin before I dropped Justin. I learned how to measure a teaspoon from Justin Wilson. If you didn't do that, right there, and it's spot on. And he would show you. He would make it a point to be that curmudgeonly old dude and say, "No, I'm going to show you," and here it is every time. And
one of the best culinary minds ever. Like, I think people can learn so much if they go. I mean, don't get me wrong, Julia Childs was amazing.
Yeah. Yep. No. I mean, the whole offering of public television really, I think, crafted, like, if we want to talk about late 70s babies, all right, maybe I can relate to Roscoe here and say, like, that programming, that line of programming, I think created a lot of culinary passion in our generation now, which I think is why our kids are eating so well and so differently, comparatively.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Sure. So you end up doing this. You end up realizing this is like your golden ticket, Willy Wonka style. You can go anywhere. You can do anything. You can get your free meal. And fast forward, Chez Panisse, Momofuku, like these are not small names. How did you go from one to the other? Obviously not the whole story, but how did you ping pong back and forth there?
I just traveled a lot and landed a lot of places through food, of course through relationships, and got really lucky I come from a school of, cooking where we all work for free for a while until we get in the door. Yep. But luckily I never burned a bridge, and chefs would always give me a recommendation. I mean, when I got the job at Chez Panisse, this is back when you had to send a letter to the restaurant. Yep. Like, there was no emailing, you know?
No.
I'm an old man. Like, you had to show up.
No, it's so true. And I mean, I know, from other interviews that there's definitely a generational gap in the way folks approach and appreciate, the culinary position acquisition, process. So, you go through, you're lucky, and here you are in Top Chef, which is how I discovered you. And then to read your backstory was amazing. Short stay, but I gotta wonder, talk to me about where you draw culinary inspiration from, because here you are put on the spot. I think everybody who watches at home is always like, and I'm guilty of this. I'll put my hand up. I acknowledge I've said this before. Come on, man. What are you doing? And yet, once that timer goes, like, stuff gets real quick. So how did you, even if you just want to talk about the episode or if you want to talk in general, where does Roscoe Hall go to for inspiration?
Normally, I go to I'm on a Rolodex of recipes. So normally I just drive off of what I'm recently cooking. And within that particular time, I mean, when Top Chef reached out to me, it was more of like, I just furloughed 19 people. I was working, my job consisted of 60 hours of work to start. And then when the pandemic hit, I was already at 85 hours running a small team with takeout. So I was tired. And so when I agreed to get on the show, quarantine, there's fires, there's protests going on. It was just one of those things where you're just tired. You had time to reflect about what you've been up to the past year or so. So my head wasn't there. None of us were really there. We were all, I think she said it was the first time there's ever been nothing but executive chefs on the show. Yeah. When you're an executive chef, you run a business. You don't really cook that much. Yeah. So the chance to be creative and actually think for yourself that's not for a profit or paying attention to how much a case of gloves costs just kind of took us all by surprise. Yeah. So I immediately went to something that I cooked for my kids. The only thing I've cooked all year was, chicken adobo, but I had ducked, and as soon as I decided to do adobo and we're ordering our stuff on the app, I'm like, what are you doing? You should just make barbecue duck, because that's all I've been doing is barbecue and meats. Yeah. And then I saw these kids sketching stuff, and I was just like, oh, maybe I should sketch out a dish. Something I don't fucking normally do. Yeah. So the rest of it just kind of went down from there,
Yeah, it's fun. As soon as one element of it goes, it's like you're playing catch up the rest of the time.
Yeah, I wasn't in it at all. I was just let's just whatever. I was okay, this is probably the worst dish I've made in 7 years.
Well,
John even said it. We talked about it after. It's just that's the worst dish you ever made. I'm like, yeah, we'll put it up there. We'll put it up there.
But I mean, listen, to be fair, as a viewer and as a fan, I would have been honored to taste it. Do not get me wrong, but I could definitely see, I could see where, that the hiccup happens, and it's like people people fail to realize, and this is just from talking to literally from season 1 on to season Portland. I've spoken to Cheftestants, and that's the biggest thing. Like, I wish personally people could understand is that, like, no, it's not some fun little produced backroom bullshit. Okay, we're going to give you the plate. It's going to be underneath. Just pull it up when we're done and it'll look beautiful. Yeah. Like, you're legitimately on the clock, under the gun. And if you don't get there, you don't get there.
No. Like, it's camera full. Like, you're not used to all that. It's not the way you cook, to be honest. Like, we all keep in touch on the Cheftestant. So it's like, we just don't cook like that. Like,
no.
If you want to taste our real food, it's like, that's why you look at Last Chance Kitchen. You get to see us actually cook.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's for me when NBC reached out and they're like, hey, you want to talk to Roscoe? I'm like, hell yeah, I want to talk to Roscoe. And I don't want to blow up any spot regarding Last Chance, but I know that's coming too. So that's exciting. Like, I love that concept. I cannot wait to see. That's all I'm going to say. I know we're under contractual obligation and the ears of the CIA are listening, so we can't say anything more. I can't wait to see how far you go, because I really think that I almost think, and I said this to my kid who was watching it with me. I said, because he was all upset. He's like, oh, Daddy, you like Roscoe? I said, yeah, but I'm going to tell you something. I think getting that one out of the way, it's kind of like taking your first drive on a golf course. You take the first swing and you shank it hard left and you're like, well, can't go anywhere but up.
Yep.
And go. So that's all I'm going to say about it. That's all. I don't want you getting in trouble, so that's all I'm going to let you say about it. But
I think a lot of people on that show too. It's like, I was one of the oldest, and I'm a punk rock kid. Like, when I go back to the question of like traveling around, I was like a squatter.
Nice.
Hanging out with like punks.
Nice.
Skate punks. And, when I was working at Japanese, I was homeless for like a year just to get money up to like go to work and be clean. I stayed in like beneath the punk rock club in Berkeley. I paid $1,000 to park my car somewhere. Like, it wasn't an easy one. So it's like, by this time in my life, culinary career, I'm just like, fuck it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm 43. I don't have anything else to prove. Like, you guys, what are you doing, young kids? Let's cook. Okay.
Let's go. Yeah. Let's go. I love it. I love it, dude. I love it. That, and there's so many, again, as a, early 40s punk guy myself, we could legitimately go on for years.
Yes.
So, you're still culinary director of Post Office Pies. Can you tell us a little bit about Post Office Pies? Because I admit I had to do some reading. I had to do some reading.
Oh, you did?
Yes. But Post Office Pies.
Post Office Pies is amazing. My buddy John, who left Sambar when I got the job, he went to, I think, Gramercy Tavern. He was a sous chef at Gramercy Tavern for he was CDC for like 4 years. I mean, this guy's immaculate. And I move here, he comes to one of my pop-up dinners, we meet, and it's just a great vibe. Everyone thinks we're related because we're both black, have the same last name. We do a lot of private dinners, so it's really funny. It's like an ongoing joke. But,
nice.
Like, he knew I was looking for a slight change, and I need to focus on myself and get back to actually being a husband and a father.
Yeah.
So, he started Post Office Pies when he moved back to New York probably 7 years ago. Mm-hmm. And it's a great neighborhood pizza shop. I know the vibe he was going for. It's like, in New York, every neighborhood has their pizza place.
Yeah.
The tricky thing about this is everything's made from scratch, fresh mozzarella. It's meatballs, like everything's wood fired and it's crazy.
Nice.
Like we make up to 100 pies in, like 30 minutes in a wood fire oven. It's insane.
Holy shit. How big's the oven?
The oven can fit about 16 pies, but if it hits 1,000 degrees, you can cook a pizza in a minute and a half.
Oh, man. Wow.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
way back to Rodney's, because Rodney's was a lot of work.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So, let's talk 5-year plan. What does this look like 5 years from now? Are you good where you're at? Do you want to do more with it? What's the plan for Roscoe Hall?
After last year and ending it with Top Chef, it's just like, you realize how much you're not home.
Yeah.
Like, I had kids throughout my entire culinary career, like, since I moved here. My oldest is 6, so it's like, the wife was running the house by herself. I think I really need to look at like how to adapt being a chef, like husband, father.
Yeah.
And focus more on my artwork, because as soon as I got back, even while I was at Top Chef, I started pushing more art, just focusing on like the vision of it, like what I can do with it. Like, I really want to get an Art Basel in Miami. That's a goal, but I'm probably going to. I see myself probably opening a restaurant. I'm not gonna lie. I just see it happening. I don't know when. I may be like 52. It can probably only seat 6 people. And it'll be fine.
Yeah, and it'll be full of your art, too.
Yes, and like, it'll be a gallery / punk rock venue / restaurant. Like, who cares?
Oh my god, I love it. I'm coming out for the opening. I'm calling it right now.
Oh, dude, it'd be one of those places that should only be in Milwaukee.
Yes, well then I'm coming to Milwaukee, goddammit. For folks interested in checking out Chef's artwork, go out to the Insta and check out Artistic Misfits, one word. Can I assume Misfits is a tip of the hat to one of the greatest bands to ever exist?
Of course.
Excellent. I actually just introduced my middle kid to Glenn Danzig, so I'm kind of proud.
Oh, watch out.
I know. Because he had this little front mohawk spike, and the lady cutting his hair, who's all inked up, you know, I'm a little inked up, I can talk to shop, and she goes, yo, you look like Glenn Danzig. And he turns, he goes, who? I'm like, stop talking. Don't say another word. I'll be right back. We literally listened to like 30 minutes of Misfits on the way home. I'm like, okay, now do you understand? So we covered that. So Artistic Misfits on the Insta. So be sure to be looking for restaurant, gallery, punk rock scene from Roscoe in the next 5 years. He's contractually obligated now that he said it on air. So there is that. Hey, let's downshift a little bit into the afters. Little bit more irreverent, off the cuff questions. Not as serious, but God damn, I feel like we've covered a lot of ground, man. You're a great interview. So a little bit more fun, a little bit more laid back. Let's start with, and I think I know the answer to this one. If you and I are cooking together in your kitchen, what music am I listening to?
Depends on the day, depends on the time.
Okay.
I usually do a perfect medley. May start with some jazz, preferably 1956 Hackensack, New Jersey. Anything on Impulse is always my go-to.
Okay. Got it.
Recently coming from New Orleans, I'm all about Donald Harrison.
Ooh, very nice. Yep.
Marcellus right now, but then I'm probably gonna go into something electronic like K-Tronada, because I'm a Chicago boy, we love house music. Gonna hit you with some reggae, of course.
Nice.
And then we're just gonna probably go into anything by Steve Albini produced, probably shellac or like Tad or anything loud and grungy until it's time to eat.
Oh my god. I'm in. There, you would not see a single muscle twitch towards changing anything, about that. I'm totally
awesome.
In. Next up, fictitious scenario. You're going to be stranded on a deserted island. You can only bring 3 foods or food type items with you. Inexhaustible supply, infinite supply through the magic of fiction, but only 3 to the deserted island with you. What would they be and why?
Salt and pepper kettle chips, just because they are insanely delicious. The crunch is perfect. It's a perfect pastime.
Love it.
This is tricky. Because I don't get I was gonna say salad, but I can't do that.
Who's eating a salad? You're gonna die from malnutrition eventually anyway. You might as well be happy.
I know. I would say let's go straight to a shout out to Rodney Scott. Rodney Scott's chicken.
All right.
It's one of the best chickens you'll ever eat in your life. It deserves to be placed on a white plate.
All right.
And then here we go. This will just kill me, probably. Kimchi, pork belly, and steamed rice.
Whoa, where the hell did that come from? I mean, I agree, don't get me wrong, I'm good with it, but holy shit.
I can eat it for days.
You're not going to have much else to do, so why not? Let's just speed the process along, shall we?
Yes.
Have you ever had the chance to check out My Last Supper by Melanie Denea?
No.
So it's an awesome coffee table photography book. She's a wonderful photographer. I got the concept for the format of the show from her, and there's 50 famous chefs. If you've ever seen the image of Bourdain, black and white, with the, I believe, beef shank hanging between his legs, naked, that's her picture. So she asked along with those pictures a standard battery of questions, and it all revolves around your ticket's getting punched tomorrow. What's your last meal? And so I ask you, Chef Roscoe, what's your last supper?
In honorable fashion to going out with a duck adobo that I never made, I'm gonna say chicken adobo.
Nice.
I just love it, man.
Nice. Yeah, I'm not well educated, but I have had it, and I must say it is one of the most unique, multifaceted flavor profiles I've ever tasted in my life.
Sad part, I went to New Orleans this weekend to see one of my best friends. He's Filipino. His family taught me chicken adobo. So when I get there, I'm like, it's quiet. I'm like, dude, I'm so sorry. And he was like, yeah, you let my family down. I'm like, I know.
They're all looking at you with disdain. Like, how could you? How could you? Anything else with the chicken adobo? What's being poured? Who's there? Anybody alive or dead? Doesn't matter.
I'd love for my son to be there. No offense to my daughter. And I want loud radio with some of my top 5 albums. And what's being poured is probably some Gruner.
Nice.
Go.
Goddamn right.
Gruner and 6-pack of Old Style. Let's ride.
That's it, baby. Ride it out hard. I love it. Oh my God. I'm now booking my ticket to come see you like yesterday. And finally, last question, the most basic and yet the most complex. What is food to Chef Roscoe Hall in a single word?
What is food?
Mm-hmm.
Food is communion almost. I say that because it drives like a solid community based off solidarity of craft.
Wow.
And that's a really rare thing.
I love that.
Especially if you do it right.
Yeah. And you're not just in it, like so many are for the money, for the fame. If you're in it for its intrinsic nurturing value, communion. I love that word, dude. That's amazing.
Woo!
Just amazing. Look at that. Finishing strong. Chef Roscoe, man, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today. You can check Chef Roscoe out on Top Chef as well as Last Chance Kitchen, Thursdays on Bravo, bravotv.com for more details. But beyond that, be sure to check out what he's doing at Post Office Pies at postofficepies.com, as well as his Twitter and Instagram action at Artistic Misfits, all one word. Did I miss anything, sir?
No.
All right.
This is awesome.
Man, thank you so much. It was awesome all around. Thank you so much, man, and long live punk, buddy.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah, brother. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been episode number 161 of the Coarse Grind Podcast. With me this evening, the incredible punk brother of mine now for life, Chef Roscoe Hall. Our producer, as always, has been the lovely, voluptuous Johnny Leland Robinson, a.k.a. the Reverend Johnny Lamoria. Be sure to check out the reboot of his Johnny Lamoria show. Next episode will be number 162. You won't want to miss it. Stay tuned. Are you passing through central Pennsylvania and looking for one of the best dining experiences and craft brew menus around? Look no further. Turkey Hill Brewing Company and 991 Central Road in Bloomsburg, PA has everything you could ask for and then some. Service, food, beer together. Unbelievable. Be sure to check them out. Call them today for reservations. 570-387-8422. Call today.